All right, so basically, guys, it's just everything to do with vectors that we have done, okay? It can be, some of the questions are incredibly basic, like collinear vectors, okay, like you would have done in Science 10, okay, where you just put them together. And some that are perpendicular, some boat questions that we talked about the other day, okay? And then some regular vector component kind of stuff, like here, solve for x, here's a vector, solve for x and y, okay? Or here's some vectors, put them together, use vector component addition to solve. Okay, there's a little bit of everything, all right? So I'll give you a few tips and hints here as we go along. The first tip, put vectors on everything, okay? It's the vector assignment after all. You'd be surprised how often people forget to put a vector on an assignment labeled vector assignment, okay? So vectors, don't forget to put vectors on things, okay? And the second thing would be significant digits. Okay, always be mindful of significant digits. A great way to remember that is to write down your givens and then have a look at them and write beside it what you think the significant digits would be. Okay, you always have to double check just in case I gave you a number you didn't use. Okay, but generally it's a reminder, at least when you look beside your givens and you see 2SD, to remember, right, okay, I got to make sure my answer's got 2 significant digits. Okay, always a good way to remember. All right, question number 1. 2 displacement vectors, D1 and D2, each point 35 degrees north of west. That means they point the same way. They both point 35 degrees north of west. One is 4.6 kilometers, the other is 3.2 kilometers. What is the magnitude and direction of the resultant vector? Okay, okay, don't overthink that one. Would be my tip on that one. Don't overthink it. They point the same way. Okay. I would also draw. Okay. You're going to get a mark basically for every vector diagram you draw on this assignment, so make sure you draw your vector diagrams. All right, number 2 throws people a little bit because it's a situation we haven't specifically done, but is still vector addition. Okay, what confuses people is they visualize this, which oddly is what I tell you to do all the time. They visualize a box that has 2 ropes attached to it that are pulling west and south. So they picture this, okay? And that's okay, but remember, the 2 forces that are acting on the box are vector quantities. Force is a vector quantity. You add it like you would any other vector quantity, which, as a quick review, is how? How do I put vectors together? Tail to head. Remember that. That diagram does not show them that way. Think about which way that box would go. Okay? If you're pulling it west and you're pulling it south, think about which way it would go and align them tail to head, and you'll be fine with that. Okay? All right, question number 3, boat travels due east and then travels 25 degrees south of east. Calculate the magnitude and direction. That would be an exam level question. You got one that's right along the compass direction, one that's angled. Okay, very much like you would get on a test. Vector component addition, guys, same as you would any other vector component question. Okay, number 4 is simply asking you to calculate the x and y components for that given vector. Okay, it's 145 meters long. It's 28 degrees above the negative side of the x-axis. So for this question, you are not dealing with compass directions. Okay, you are dealing with an xy plot. Okay, that looks like this. Think about where you need to draw that vector. It is above the negative side of the x-axis. So think about what your vectors would be on the 2 components. Spoiler alert, do not give me compass directions on your answers for this question. Okay? All right, and then number 4, basically the same question, except this time you are given compass directions, so I would expect compass directions on your x and y components for this one. It is one vector, solve for x and y. Draw it, solve for x and y. Okay, number 6. Okay, very much like question number 3. Okay, you just have two vectors, but here's the trick on this one. It is specifying which reference direction to give it. Okay, if it says relative to due east, that means something of east. Okay, your angle needs to be measured relative or from or of east for that question. Okay, otherwise it's just like any other exam level question. One is straight, one is angled. Go for it. Number 7. Seems like it's a lot because there's 3 vectors. Okay, but 2 of them are straight. Okay, like one goes east and one goes north. So you actually only have one angled vector out of the 3. Draw the diagram, don't sweat it. Okay, it's actually not that difficult a question even though it has 3 vectors. Draw them tail to head and you'll be fine on question number 7. Okay. Oh, incidentally, in case you missed the language on that, what would be needed to hole out on the first putt? That's basically saying what's the total displacement in this question? If you were to make this in one putt, what would be your displacement and angle? Okay, is what you're being asked to solve for there. All right, number 8 is just 2 angled vectors, vector component addition, same as you've done a bunch of times already in class. All right, and then 9 and 10 are both boat questions. Okay, so in this one here, Diane is rowing a boat directly across the river, which is different than going across. Remember, there's rowing across and going across. Diane doesn't actually go across. Okay, think about that. Draw them, they're just perpendicular. Okay, calculate the stuff that you're asked for there. Okay, and for number 10, same type of question. Okay, it's another boat question. Okay, don't overthink it. Draw the vectors, do the calculations. Okay, if you have questions as you're working, you can come up and ask. The one thing I won't do is I won't say, yeah, that's right. Okay, because this is an assignment. I have to know that you know how to do it. Okay, if I see something that's like way off track, I might redirect you a little bit, but I won't give the yeah, that's right answer. Okay, think.
How much time do we have to continue?
You have the whole class today, and it isn't due until the 18th. So what is that? Next week, Thursday of next week. Okay. All right. So that gives you plenty of time to have come in and say, Mr. Gooder, can you look this over? When I look it over, I'll go. You might want to check these questions, but that's about as. I won't say yeah, this one's right or that one's not right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can talk with each other. Just no dividing up the work. Okay, go, hey, I'm going to do questions 1 and 3 and 5, and you no, that's not how this works. Okay? All right, have at it, guys. If you got questions, let me know.